Game slate tonight in the association. 9 tonight, 10 tomorrow, I think 2 on Thursday and 11 on Friday. So we can't quite get that sweet spot of the Goldilocks slate with like 6 or 7 or 8 games or something like that. That seems to be the number that most people like. That's what I like. Stevie, is that your favorite? Give me the ideal number of games. Is that you kind of with me? 6, 7, 8. Is that the sweet spot for us?
Nothing under 5, nothing over 10. I think you could do a whole season schedule with nothing under 5, nothing over 10.
Yeah,
every night.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's not how that works. But that
I'm
would be
saying,
amazing.
like, that's
for
the
DFS.
sweet spot, right? Like,
yeah. I wish that's the way it was, and I think as the season progresses, hopefully it'll kind of even out or flatten out. But yeah. Well, tomorrow, Thursday too. Come on, what are we talking about? Throw one of those games on Thursday or Friday. No, Wednesday or Friday on Thursday. But hey, it's Daily Fantasy Sports. All we care about is tonight and tonight only. Stevie, how are things in your world? This the 9-game slate. It's interesting because we got I think 6 of the 9 games start at either 7 o'clock or 7:30. So a lot of it's early. 2 games are backloaded at 10 o'clock. But yeah, I mean it's a good screenshot night tonight. You got to get some points early.
Yeah, I mean, the slate's fantastic. There's a lot of different ways to be different at the top. There's a ton of value plays that, you could be different with. So overall, I think the slate is fantastic. And, I like it a lot here.
Bringing in Will as well, not messing around. 3-man booth, dragging him away from the prop shop temporarily for an hour or so. Do say hello to Will in that prop shop, in the Discord channel. That is free. It's not a premium channel. It is for everybody. Man of the people, Will. How are things in your world, Will? And also, this slate, it's pretty simply summed up with the Pelicans. It's all about those Pelicans. And, you're going to buy that awesome, delicious chalk that is James Harden, all by his lonesome, the last man standing on Brooklyn. That is the main, that's the slate, right? I think so.
I think we're going to have a few other pieces that we're interested in. I think we have one game in particular that is very tasty and will not be chalky at all because of what's going on. So, and just to clear it up, I do think you'll need some guys from New Orleans. But let me just say, I do not plug the prop shop excitedly every day or every time we come on, because I want people to just come in on their own and hang out, have a good time. Let me just tell you right now, we are back in what I like to call prime time prop shop mode. The prop shop doesn't sleep anymore. Here's why. CSGO is back.
Oh, yeah.
Starts at 2, 3, 4 a.m. We're riding all day. Now is the time to be in the prop shop. If you haven't hopped in there, if you don't know what CSGO is, just come. We'll teach you. We will teach you the winning ways and everything we know. Yes, this is an NBA show, and thank goodness my good friend Stevie knows what I'm talking about. CSGO might be the best thing Prize Picks has going over there, and it's probably not even close, at least for right now. MLB, we're going to get there, and Stevie will have his NASCAR plug for the subscribers, and disc golf. Look at all the things I'm giving you just right now. It's prop shop season is live, man. I couldn't be happier to be in there right now. So come hang out and let's have a good time.
Tell the prop shop that we're hanging out in the live stream chat channel. If they're not aware, sometimes they give them a heads up, kind of, if they want to ask any questions to you directly. Well, not actually directly, because producer Steve's going to pull those questions and throw them our way. End of the show, I will regurgitate them and ask them on your behalf. Any questions they have for Stevie as well. I suppose if they have any CSGO questions, they can ask those, but this is the basketball show. And we're going to break the games down game by game. And we're going to save some time at the end of the show and knock out the questions that were compiled throughout the show. Do give us details as far as those questions. Let them know, let us know if it's for, DraftKings, or it's for FanDuel, if it's for Prize Picks, if it's a tournament, if it's a cash lineup, large field, single entry, all that kind of stuff. The more details, the better, the easier it makes to answer the question. I got my eye on, I'm coming up soon in Top Shot too. So hopefully I don't miss my pack. I'm very excited about this. I'm multitasking on air right now. We'll see how that goes down. Hopefully we want to get ourselves something good.
Got to get that Top Shot pack, Dean. Listen, I'm happy for you, brother. I love Top Shot. I got too many other things to do right now.
Yeah, fair enough, man. You know what, Will? I'm going to guess, but there's four of the 9 games at 7 o'clock, not messing around. And, there are some body parts, there are some injuries that we're monitoring as far as the slate. and show it's the association, it's basketball, some news will drop. But we know a lot of the stuff. Like we're waiting on basically FEV is questionable. That's a big one. Gordon Hayward's a questionable play. That's a big one too. And that's the same game. We'll talk about that in a second. Otherwise, we know about what's going on in New Orleans. We'll talk about that. Basically, your entire starting lineup is not playing. Pat Bev is questionable too. And we're expecting Anthony Davis to come back tonight. And De'Aaron Fox is questionable. Otherwise, basically, we have, I don't want to say we have all the information, but you know what I mean? I'm going to say this, Will. The very first game we're going to talk about, I'm going to say this is your sneaky game. Charlotte versus Toronto, 222.5. Pretty high, tight as far as Toronto being a 2-point favorite. Yes, FEV is questionable, which is a big deal. If he does play, he'll probably play his usual 40 minutes or so. We know how they just run those Toronto guys into the ground with their 6.5 man rotation. Charlotte fully healthy with the exception of Jalen McDaniels, and Gordon Hayward is questionable with his foot. Well, was I right to assume, because this is an interesting one and it feels like the rotation is going to be condensed on both sides and a pretty good pace as well. Is this your sneaky game or is it not?
It actually is not
Okay.
my sneaky game, but I still like it. I definitely think the guys from Charlotte and Toronto are going to be big time in play. If Fred VanVleet happens to sit, I mean, Pascal Siakam is already pushing 23% just because he's probably going to have an upside game tonight. But then that would also open it up for a guy like OG, who's already around 12. I think maybe his ownership would creep up a little bit. You got Gary Trent, who probably pick up a few more shares in ownership. So I think on both sides of this game, you've got really good plays now. Once again, trying to ping the one guy on Charlotte or two guys on Charlotte that are going to have the big game. That's always the issue right now because of the prices, right? Now Terry's almost up to 8K. That's more like a real scary Terry in terms of price. You got LaMelo at 8,700. And while he's got the upside, he does have it and it's coming. I don't feel like we're going to see 50-point fantasy performances consistently throughout the season, at least not right now. Maybe after February, he just goes nuclear because we're trying to make the playoff run. But for me right now, I don't think I can pull the trigger. Miles Bridges is 8,400. And when you look at these prices, it's all reflected in the ownership. One of these guys, though, is probably going to get there tonight. I just don't know who it is. And so I can't adequately recommend anyone from Charlotte. But I do feel good about these Toronto guys because, Jesus, they're all playing 40 minutes, it feels like.
If Gordon Hayward doesn't go, I think you can give bumps to PJ Washington and Kelly Oubre.
Absolutely.
Depends on where you're shopping, but like the FEV price on FanDuel is awesome at 8.2K. If he goes, we're currently that's just insane. He's going to play 40 minutes, barring goofiness. We're projecting 40% ownership for him on FanDuel because 8.2K is just really a ridiculous price. And also LaMelo, if you like LaMelo, he's best played on FanDuel as well at 7.8K.
Just got rolled out.
Who did?
There it
VanVleet
is.
just got rolled out.
Oh, wow.
Ooh.
Okay.
Well,
man, who do we think's going to run the point here? Do we think they're going to throw Banton in the starting? Okay, I was thinking maybe Barnes possibly, or maybe, okay. That's interesting.
Toronto guys are gone.
Boucher probably gets a bump too. Like maybe they slide him up, Siakam down to the 4 and Boucher can play some 5. Just trying to think, like you can play smaller against Charlotte. They don't play Plumlee a ton. Like Washington can play the 5 and Boucher can play the 5. That can happen at some point throughout this game. But okay, well, so much for FEV on FanDuel. Stevie, what do you have for me? What are your thoughts here? Although Toronto guys, again, condensed rotations. Trent, OG, Barnes, Pascal, all strong plays. I love Pascal on DK at 9.1. Like him even more without Freddie. And then I think Boucher gets a bump and possibly they get a start out of like Banton, but that could be fraudulent. Maybe he doesn't close and he plays like 22 minutes or so, depending on how well he's doing. That's my initial thought, but I don't know.
On the Charlotte side, I like PJ Washington. I think everybody else is kind of priced appropriately. On the Toronto side, with VanVleet getting ruled out, OG, Siakam, Gary Trent Jr., and in large field tournaments, maybe we take a shot on Banton just because of his price and potential role in this game. He played, 24 minutes earlier this season against Cleveland when some people were out. So, I don't think it's crazy to think that he's going to get some extra run in this game. But I really think on Toronto, the main pieces are Siakam, OG, and Gary Trent Jr.
Just did a court IQ on this and get kicked off Freddie VanVleet off the court. Assist rate bump for Banton a little bit, Siakam a little bit, like Malachi Flynn a little bit. Like there's no one guy that I'm seeing like really standing out. As far as usage bumps, Gary Trent with FEV off the court gets a usage bump of 5.5%, and per 36 minutes, 6.44 more fantasy points on DK. So that seems pretty significant as well. Watanabe is another guy that might get some run, but all that stuff is sort of. I don't think any of it is better than the New Orleans stuff. What we're talking about. That's my first thought. Like if it's Banton or if it's Watanabe or if it's Malachi Flynn, it's probably a combination of any of those guys. But it really just condenses the good stuff and makes them a little bit more appealing. That's sort of where I'm at, Will, as far as this Toronto side. It makes Pascal a little bit better, OG a little better, Barnes a little better. Good matchup against Charlotte as well.
Yeah, man, for sure. Especially on DK, 5K Gary Trent, 6,900 OG, not 8,900 Siakam. Siakam is probably going to be vaulted into best play on the slate position at this point. I mean, and I agree wholeheartedly. Like at 8,900, he could legit put up a 60 burger tonight. It's in the cards, right? Especially, and I know the assist numbers have maybe been down a touch recently, but look at this last game, 28, 8, and 5. But look at some of these other games he had, Dean. 18, 10, and 6, 30, 10, and 10. That's probably close to what we're going to see tonight. By close, I'm saying he could go 25, 9, and 8. I'd be perfectly fine with that because the fantasy points are going to be there. I think Pascal Siakam has just been vaulted into, if we had a morning grind podcast, 6X player tonight, Pascal Siakam was probably on that list.
We can't really increase more minutes for Pascal as far as his projection. It's at 40. I don't think he can go beyond that. But like 40 is realistic. OG at 39, Barnes 35, Trent 30. I think Barnes and Trent can get a little bit of bumps off of 30 and 35. And Boucher at 24, I think can get up higher than that too. And like those five are all, certainly in that pool. And it's always kind of tricky to figure out how much Nurse will go beyond that. We do have like 60 minutes projected for Achua and, Banton currently at 8, Champagne currently at 8. And like, again, somebody's going to elevate it beyond that. Maybe Flynn enters the rotation or something like that, but that's all fragile as far as I can tell. By the way, Thibault is available to play, expected to start for Philadelphia. Anything else to say here, Stevie? Maybe we'll get some news as far as the starting lineup. If nothing else, I'm sure we'll talk about it on crunch time, depending on what to do for Toronto. But yeah, I mean, Trent at 5K, I think is a pretty good price there on DK. We talked about his usage, big old usage bump, 5.5%. That's a pretty big jump when you take Freddie off the court. What else do you have for Stevie, or shall we move on to the next game?
I mean, Gary Trent 3-point prop when it comes back up. Pound the over.
It's probably coming in at 3.5. That's my guess.
He's gonna chuck him tonight.
Do you have any prize picks for us tonight? Well, I know I don't really have to ask. You always have some, but if you want to, feel free to sprinkle them on through as we're talking throughout the games. Like you don't have to fire them all out right now. Keep them in the holster if you have more for other games. Layaway. But
I mean, listen, we got staple props around there, and this is a fairly big slate, so we don't try to reinvent the wheel in the prop shop. Mostly, we have certain props that we stick with, and we'll still investigate. Right? It is still a slate to slate basis. You're not going to feel great about it, but Mason Plumlee is probably coming in at 2.5 points first half. And it's not going to feel great, but trust me, look at his production. He's pretty much getting 4 points every half, like clockwork. So at 2.5, we basically need him to get a bucket and a free throw or 2 buckets. And so he's been kind of smashing that. I think he's got about a 70% hit rate on that, 2.5 points. I like that one. Yeah, but I don't care about it being low. I just want him to hit it, right? Because he's going to take about 6 shots a game. So it's not like he can miss, but his smash percentage is about 7. Well, not smash percentage, but his hit rate is about 70%. Joel Embiid, no secret here. He's pretty much in every time he's playing, we're hammering it. And tonight he gets a depleted New Orleans Pelicans team. He's coming in at 15.5 first half points. Feels like a big number, but you go back and check the results. He's smashing that number, Dean. Last 10 games, 16, 17, 24, 16, had a 7, a 10 sprinkled in, right? And then 16, 23, 21, 18. Those are the last 10 games. He's missed 2 out of the last 10 games, and they were back-to-back. And when he missed those 2, we got him in at 13 and a half. So now he's back to 15 and a half, and he gets depleted New Orleans Pelicans team. I think he's going to be fine tonight, and I'll let that ride for now. And I'll plug in some more as we go along.
Yeah, the absence, the girth of Jonas Valanciunas getting downgraded for the combination of Willie.
Oh, Hayward's out again, and so is Marcus Morris. Oops. Wow.
Hernan Gomez and Jackson Hayes. Good luck against Embiid tonight. Yeah, Hayward being out, I think it gives upsides, a little more upside to guys like Paul and Rozier and Bridges.
Okay, let me say this. Sorry, Dean. Now Terry Rozier first half points at 9.5 are in play big time, but they're probably going to pull him and put him back in the game at 9.5. I mean, at 10.5, excuse me. Either way, I'm willing to roll the dice on Terry Rozier. This tells you how much I'm in these props. I look at them every day. Terry Rozier at 10.5, last 10 games. He had a game of 5 in there, 17, 13, 17, 16, 10. He came in at 9.5, so 10, he would have hit that. 16, 10, 8, and 5. So he's got a 70% hit rate. And tonight there's no Gordon Hayward. Terry Rozier first half points is on the board as well now. All right, I'm done talking about props until we get to the next thing.
Raptors, by the way, are starting Trent, Anunoby, Barnes, Siakam, and Precious Achua. So they're not starting another guard. So that means that, Barnes or Trent is running the point, or I don't know who they have running the point. I guess it's one of those two. Probably Barnes running the point there for Toronto. And again, I think Precious is whatever. I'm not terribly enthused about him. I think that Boucher is more interesting if I'm going to pick one of those. And I also think there's other cheap guys on the slate that are better than Precious. That's my initial thoughts. Maybe I'll end up in a lineup, but ideally that's not where I'm at. All right. Who else you said was ruled out? Morris for Marcus Morris.
Marcus Morris. Yeah.
Okay. So I was just going to say, this is the throwaway game. Clippers versus the Wizards, 220. Wizards are currently 5-point favorites against the Clippers. As far as the injuries in this game, that there are few and far between. The Clippers, are without Morris. That's the only one they had. Washington's fully healthy. I don't know how much that moves the needle. Like Zubac and Batum still aren't jumping off the page. They have Kennard, they have Ibaka, they have Hartenstein. There's bodies there. I don't like anybody here, Stevie. You tell me otherwise.
I mean, with Morris out, maybe you could take a shot on Amir Coffey or Zubac, but I mean, that's really it. Maybe Luke Kennard plays 30 minutes in this game at 4,200 on DraftKings. On the Washington side, I mean, they're all healthy and they're all priced appropriately. I have no interest in Washington. So I think with Morris being out, you could potentially take a few shots here, but it's top heavy tournaments only, I think, is where you take those shots.
Yeah. Before the Morris news, we had Morris as the highest projected owned guy in FanDuel at 9%. Otherwise, Beal at like 3-4%. On DK, you can Beal's like 4 or 5%. And like, am I saying he can't score 40 points, real life points in the bucket tonight? No. Is there anything to point to that says like tonight is the night I'll do that? No. But like you said, if it's a monster tournament and you want to take a shot in the dark, that kind of thing, whatever, top heavy, go for it. But Will, do you have anything else to say? I mean, you want to add in or you want to sell me and Stevie on somebody in this game? Because my thought is it's basically a cross off.
Roll with it.
Denver, Detroit, 216.5 is the total here in this game. Denver is an 8-point favorite tonight. Whew, I mean, you kind of mentioned it, Will, right? We'll talk about Jokic, but you kind of talk about Jokic and Embiid in the same conversation, in the same breath. 8-point favorite here on the road. As far as, who's in and who's out, these two teams, pretty healthy. Kelly Olynyk is not going to be available for Detroit, just came back. And Frank Jackson is questionable. We're not certain, but, not a big deal. As far as Denver, Jeff Green is questionable. Otherwise, we expect everybody else pretty much to be available. I think the Jokic conversation is you include Embiid, right? Embiid's been insane of late, just incredible. And you kind of ran it off, and the usage has been awesome, and the matchup's great, and you can be afraid of the blowout, I suppose, because New Orleans is essentially playing their second unit to start the game. They have 9 total bodies. Yeah, so Jokic or Embiid. Jokic a little bit more money, obviously, Will.
they're pretty much in identical situations. I think I'm still going Embiid on this one. And it's not because of the prop game. I'm just basically taking my $1,000 discount. You know what I mean? And so I can get in maybe one higher quality player than the other. We're pretty much comparing apples to apples and oranges to oranges here. And what I mean by that is Jokic probably has more true upside because he's pretty much a walking triple-double at center, right? So those are the facts. But Embiid has equitable upside for the discounted price. So I think I'm going Embiid. But that, you know, it's close.
Yeah, my thought process is I'm not starting with either one of these, but I hope to land up with one of them. You know, whichever one kind of fits my lineup, if that makes sense. And of course, I mean, I'm gonna have some New Orleans as well. So like Embiid makes for a perfect run back. We'll have that conversation in a second. Stevie, do you have a thought as far as, I mean, you know, I feel like you talk about Jokic and Embiid in the same sentence because they're, you know, the two big centers in the slate, and they're similar spends. So where are you at? And feel free to talk about anything else in this game. I think you can play Cunningham on FanDuel. It's no longer 5'5" like it was a couple days ago, whatever it was. He's 6'8", but still reasonable. But that's basically it for me in this game. You tell me otherwise.
I mean, are we talking about Jokic or Embiid? Which game are we talking about? You were talking about those two players. I didn't know.
We're talking about Jokic, but I think you got to have the Jokic and Embiid are kind of the same conversation.
No, I'm saying, like, are we talking Denver, Detroit? Is that what we're
talking?
Denver?
Yeah, we're talking Denver,
okay.
Detroit.
I mean, Harden's the real answer, but we'll get there. I mean, you could probably play Harden with one of these big guys with all the value on this slate. I think on FanDuel, you could play Cunningham like you were talking about. You know, 7-3 on DraftKings is a little tough, but 6,800, and you can use him at like that shooting guard position on FanDuel. I think even at 25 on Yahoo, Cunningham's playable, especially if you're playing Jokic. You know, for this game to stay close, Cunningham's probably going to need a big game. If I'm going Jokic or Embiid, it's probably Embiid, but I just think that they're so close that it's really just an ownership thing. Who's lower owned? I think potentially they both could have lower ownership because we have James Harden on this slate. And I mean, James Harden is the play, and we're going to talk about that when we get there. But overall, this is one of those games I kind of crossed off. I think on DraftKings, you can play Hayes at 3.5K in large field tournaments, because if he does give you that like 25 to 28 fantasy game at 3,500, that's really exceeding some expectations there.
Yeah, we'll talk. I think New Orleans is on deck actually, and you know, I ran some optimals, Stevie. I ran some optimals on FanDuel, optimals on DK. The very first one on DK, what do you know? It has 4 Pelicans, James Harden, and Joel Embiid. Like that. Yeah. That is the slate. That is where people are going to be going. FanDuel as well, same sort of deal. Let's see, 1, 2, 3 Pelicans, a couple of Raptors. One's got Freddie VanVleet, so like, you know, obviously we've got to change this. Same sort of thought process, but it's Harden, Embiid, and Pelicans. That is kind of the slate. And of course, you know, if you can pay a little bit more and make Jokic work, and if ownership is pointing people to Embiid, they're kind of stopping there, which again, fabulous play. We'll talk about him in a second. Yeah, if you're going to get Jokic at low end, I think he's interesting. I'm not really sure where that's going to land as far as the ownership. Got to wait an hour and a half until, you know, slate starts. This is all fluid stuff. Will, we got anything else in this game, or shall we just move on and power through and talk about, well, I think we got to talk about the Pelicans.
Let's get it on.
All right. So the Pelicans are in Philadelphia, back half of a back-to-back. They're traveling as well. They're just saying, screw it. Let's punt this game. Ingram's down with his ankle. They're resting the big man, Jonas Valanciunas. Devontae Graham's been dealing with an ankle. He's out as well. Josh Hart is out. If you include Zion, they're starting 5 going into the season, basically, is not playing tonight. We're projecting Jose Alvarado to draw the start, as well as Garrett Temple, Gary Clark, Herb Jones, Willie Hernan-Gomez. I don't know if it's going to be Hernan-Gomez or Jackson Hayes. They're both going to struggle with Embiid. We'll talk about it in a second. And like, I think, do we have that projected 24 as far as the minutes? Because that seems like a good hedge. That's where I would put it. And there's going to be potential foul trouble lurking too. What do we have as far as the minutes? Yeah, we got 25 for Hernan-Gomez, and I would guess 23. Not 20 for Hayes. Interesting. Yeah. So if you look at the court IQ for New Orleans, or just sort of fantasy points per minute for New Orleans, every single player, not the ones that are just playing tonight, but every single player in this roster, their best fantasy point per minute player in the season happens to be, I believe it happens to be. Oh, now I just lost my page. what I'm getting at, it happens to be Willie Hernangomez.
The problem is that it doesn't matter what he does. They're going to play him 10 minutes.
Hernangomez?
Yep.
What do you mean they're playing him 10 minutes?
I don't trust Willie Hernangomez.
Okay, but
Will Barton just got ruled out too, for what it's worth.
Okay, interesting. We'll fall back.
Oh gosh, I can't. I can't. Go ahead, Dean. I'm sorry.
Well, Will, explain the 10 minutes for Hernangomez. Where you think Hayes is going to be 35?
That was an extreme exaggeration.
Okay.
but my point is, every time I think Willie Hernangomez gets his shot, they roll him out for 20 minutes. And he should get there, but he doesn't. They do weird things. They bring Jackson Hayes in and he plays more than him. I'm looking at this ownership right now. I would just play Jackson Hayes tonight if I was everybody else. Like, screw Willie Hernangomez at 4,700. They're going to pull him out. Just play Jackson Hayes and be done. I'm telling you, I've seen this all season, Dean. I wish I could go back and just filter this thing down to the games that JV was out. And I know I probably can somehow. I just don't want to do it on the show. But Willie Hernangomez, every time this guy's JV's been out, you think he's getting big minutes and he doesn't. I think I just X him out of my player pool. And if he beats me, he beats me. I'd absolutely be in on Jackson Hayes.
He's 3-5 on FanDuel, and you can play him at power forward on FanDuel.
I don't care. Play Jackson Hayes.
I mean, I'm telling you, 3-5 or power forward on FanDuel. We're getting a center, and he's like a 1 point. It's a tough matchup and whatever. But the other part of it, Will,
he'll be out of the game in the first 3 minutes.
They're playing Philadelphia. I understand you're playing this to the extreme, but that's not true. It's like you can't predict what's going to happen.
He's going to be in foul trouble.
Okay, you're saying he's going to get 2 fouls in the first 3 minutes, but you can't say that as like a fact. Is it possible? Sure. But that's an extreme outcome.
Okay.
That's not likely.
Don't say we didn't talk about this.
I mean, to Will's defense, the guy has played over 24 minutes once this year.
I'm just telling you.
24 minutes.
I'm just saying, like,
I'm telling you.
I was so hesitant earlier to like tag him as a value play.
Mm-hmm.
I really like Herb Jones. I think Herb Jones is the play from the Pelicans to, kind of get different.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I would say you tag him on FanDuel, by the way. I don't know if you tag him on DK, but FanDuel at 3-5.
I tagged him on both. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, again, they only have 9 guys, and they're also facing Philadelphia, which is the one team you really can't go small against, because not only is it Embiid, but he's backed up by Drummond. So it's 2 big bigs. And like it's Hem and Hayes might play the 48 minutes. They can play Jones at the 5 in theory, but Jones is really undersized for both those guys. And also Hayes is foul trouble too. Like, don't pretend like Hayes can't get in. He can come in and get 3 quick fouls. Like that happens too. Yeah, and he's also interesting. I agree. I think all these guys on New Orleans are interesting. And go ahead, Stevie. Talk about how much you think about. You went to talk about Jones by all means. I think you're kind of bearing the lead with Alexander.
Well,
Walker.
I don't think we really have to spend a lot of time on Alexander Walker. Like he's a fantastic play. They finally showed us that they're willing to give him minutes when he's not turning the ball over a million times. So, I mean, he's probably the chalkiest value play on the slate for a lot of good reason. And
sure.
I mean, looking at everything else, I think Temple could come in at 10% ownership compared to like 50%, 60% for Alexander Walker. There's a ways to be different. Jose Alvarado, he's going to probably play 30 minutes in this game. He probably won't come out of the game in a blowout. So, I mean, there's a lot of ways that you can kind of attack New Orleans because, I mean, you're still playing the whole game, and they're so limited as far as just bodies that they have for this game. I mean, they're going to have to play these guys. Like Gary Clark might play 30 minutes in this game. Like that's just kind of where this game could potentially add up. So, I mean, any of these lower owned Pelican players that you think is going to play 25 plus minutes, just take shots on them. I have no problems with taking shots on them.
Yeah, we got Jones projected for 36, Na for 32, Alvarado for 32, Temple 30, Clark 28, Hernangomez 25, Hayes 20, Satoransky 22. Satoransky's still minimum, by the way, in both sites. Like he's playable too. I think there's a chance, not likely, but there's a chance Satoransky starts. It's possible. And then Marshall at 15 minutes. And if it is a blowout, like you're talking about, Stevie, it's probably, well, I mean, we're currently projecting not to start for what it's worth, which seems a little weird, but that's kind of where we're at. Who are the 5 guys that are playing in garbage time? Marshall, Hayes, Clark, Satoransky,
and
Alvarado?
Probably Herb Jones.
Yeah, I don't know. Herb's been getting real run though, so I think he's one of the. It's definitely not Garrett Temple. I'll say that.
Well, I mean, you just kind of made our point for me and Will, right? Like you just mentioned who's getting run in garbage time and didn't mention Hernan Gomez because the guy they just don't like to play. They don't like to play in the minutes. I mean, I don't know.
Stevie,
It's a 12-point game. If you think it's going to blow out, if you think it's going to be a blowout, just bet the Philadelphia side. It's a 12-point game. If it's 12 points, 3 minutes left to go, the starters are out there.
Correct, and that's true, Dean. But we're banking on New Orleans being able to keep up shorthandedly, and they could. Like I'm all for. I understand that what can happen. Here's what I'm saying: blowout or full game. I'm trying to skirt people away from Hernan Gomez because I don't think he's going to play a full game of basketball. I watched them get blown out. No, but here's what I'm saying. I watched them get blown out, put him back in. The game was tight. And I watched them pull him right back out in the fourth quarter when they had a chance to try to come back and just play Jackson Hayes. And he wasn't in foul trouble. Hernan Gomez was not like, I watched the game and I said, wow, if this is how they're going to play him, basically what we're banking on is him having an upside short stints. And against Joel Embiid, I just don't see him having some massive upside short stints. I understand he's 3,500 and in cash games, if he gets you 20 points, great. But in terms of tournaments, I don't think Willie Hernan Gomez helps you win a tournament tonight, which is why I can't advocate playing him. I just can't.
I would say he's a much better play on FanDuel at the power forward spot than he is on DK at the center spot. That's where I'll go with that one. I do agree with that, but I think
they haven't played him in what, like 2 or 3 weeks, and like Jackson Hayes has been playing consistently, like 15 to 17 minutes. Like, what do you think is more likely, Dean? Do you think Jackson Hayes playing 25 minutes or Hernan Gomez playing 25 minutes? I think that's what you gotta kind of have to decide in large field tournaments, whether or not I'm taking a shot on Hernan Gomez or I'm taking a shot on Hayes at lower ownership with maybe a higher ceiling and just kind of going from there.
I think Hayes is more interesting in tournaments than 3.1K and DK. I agree. He's got interesting routes, and I know the Hernan Gomez thing is a little sketchy. But I also think like Hernan Gomez his body is better suited to slow down Embiid. I'm not saying he will, but I think his body is better suited. I think they will start him, but I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, they always do.
They're both going to get a crack. They're going
to pull him out in 4 to 5 minutes. But I'll let it go.
I mean, I think he plays like 20 minutes. I think there's a ceiling for 25. There's a floor for like 18 minutes. You can foul out in 18 minutes. What can you do? Throw your hands up. Give me your favorite 3 guys on New Orleans, Will.
Nickeil Alexander-Walker, Herb Jones. Believe it or not, give me Garrett Temple to get a little bit different. Jose Alvarado is probably the right answer, but I do like Garrett Temple.
Yeah,
same three.
Man, you got Temple is like he's a 0.7 fantasy point minute guy. And if you think the game's going to blow out, he's the first guy off the court.
He's gonna get 30 minutes, Dean. He's not afraid to shoot.
Not afraid to shoot. He's at the lowest usage in the team. He's like 14%.
But he's probably also the best shooter on the team.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, Nas the guy that's going to shoot a ton.
But Nas does not shoot better than Garrett Temple at this point in his career.
I don't care how good or bad you are at shooting. The first thing you need to do is to shoot, and he's at least going to shoot. Yep. So. How about the Philadelphia side? We already kind of touched on Embiid. Beyond that, Stevie, as far as Philly, what do you have? By the way, this just broke too. This is tricky. Scotty Barnes is questionable for Toronto. So
this slate is flipped on its head.
I have not put any props yet.
I've done a bunch. I've gotten a bunch that I really like. I got Siakam's like props before they change.
I like
the Jokic taco is so good now. Oh. I'm having tacos for dinner tonight too. Anyway, Tybal is back for Philly. Well, expected back and expected to start. I think there's so many mouths to feed here. I think really it's Embiid. If you think the game's going to stay close, I think Maxi's even a little too pricey on this slate where we have so much value.
You got anything, Will?
I mean, it's mainly Embiid for me. I think my run with Furk and Korkmaz is done. I got my money and got out of town, and I'm going to leave it at that. Yeah, I do think there's value in, hear me out here, running out a little Andre Drummond tonight in tournaments. Sneakily running out Andre Drummond in hopes that he can get to about 22 minutes. Like, I'm not looking for 25 minutes. I'm looking for one of the Philadelphia crushes New Orleans games, and Drummond comes in with about 2 or 3 minutes left in the third quarter, and Embiid just doesn't come back. And that's the approach I would take. And you might still be able to get away with Embiid still dropping 60. But I do think Drummond's interesting, but you got to know he's not going to go past 22 minutes.
We got to pick up the pace here, boys. Lakers at Brooklyn. Awesome game to watch. In theory, Lakers are a 4-point favorite in Brooklyn because Brooklyn's going to be without Kyrie and Durant. No Millsap. Claxton is questionable. As far as the Lakers, they're pretty healthy because they're expecting Anthony Davis back tonight. With Anthony Davis coming back tonight, all the peripheral secondary pieces on the Lakers are basically shot. I suppose you can sprinkle in Westbrook if you want and a hit to LeBron as well. But this game is about Harden. That is the key piece. Patty Mills is kind of sort of somewhat interesting. Edwards probably draws the start for Brooklyn, kind of interesting. If Claxton's out, like guys like Sharp or LMA are kind of sort of somewhat interesting. But, Stevie, this game is about Harden. He's the key big spend up tonight, sleeping on nobody. I'm going to have him, whatever. I'm embracing it. I think it's delicious chalk. What are your thoughts?
It is a weird aspect of like mentally, because mentally, like I love running back like high-end players, and like I want nothing from the Lakers. With Anthony Davis expected back, we really haven't gotten like any like hard minutes limit on him. I like Harden a lot, and I think Patty Mills is super interesting for tournaments, but outside of that, this game stinks. Like it could potentially be the best actual basketball game on the night, but DFS wise, there's just not a ton of options to run Harden back with. Like you could potentially take a shot on like a low on LeBron, but are you really playing LeBron over like Jokic? Are you really playing LeBron over like DeJounte Murray? Are you playing him over, I could keep going. And that's the problem with like the Lakers. When all three of these guys are healthy, you just see a usage bump down for all three of them. So I think Harden, potentially some Patty Mills. Even if Claxton sits, I really just don't have any interest in anybody else.
Will?
Yeah, I'm not playing anyone from the Lakers. I'm going to take a wait and see approach. We've got, and what I was interested in seeing is, and I've already looked at it, but earlier I wanted to see what our minutes projection was on AD, and he came in at 30, which kind of shocked me a little bit. I thought maybe we would play 25 minutes tonight, but what I'm saying is, even at 25 minutes, I think that's enough to take a lot away from LeBron and Russell Westbrook. And I can't do it. And what I will say is, from a props perspective, Prize Picks, please don't adjust anything if you're listening to this. LeBron James is at 29.5 points tonight. I just go ahead and start hammering unders until they get him back to, he's going to get back to 24.5 real quick. In terms of props, Russell Westbrook at 32.5 points, rebounds, assists. I know Russ has been on a tear lately, but I'm telling you, Anthony Davis is going to affect that. The game's going to be different, and Russ can still get there. But I'm all about the unders on the Lakers right now, especially in the points, rebounds, assists, points category. All about the unders until they adjust from a prop perspective.
Sacramento, Boston, 220.5 is a total. Boston is an 8-point favorite. De'Aaron Fox is questionable for Sacramento, and a couple of their bigs. Damian Jones is questionable with an ankle, and Chimezie Metu is doubtful with his knee. Boston fully healthy. Will, this is another one of those games that it's on the slate, but it's not looking terribly popular. Some stuff can change in theory, but biggest ownership right now on DK is Holmes at less than 9%, Rashawn Holmes. And on FanDuel, we do see you have a salary for guys like Jason Tatum and Robert Williams, so a little bit less than 20% or so. Jaylen Brown as well, but I don't think there's any premium plays in this game. What say you?
Not really. I mean, they're playing Boston. In theory, Boston should take care of business here, and that doesn't mean that Sacramento won't hang around for within a 10 to 12 point range, which keeps the Boston starters on the floor and their starters on the floor. But all in all, I just don't think this game presents the best value. I will say this: if we were getting Jason Tatum around 9,200 tonight, he'd be a smash play for tournaments. But he's coming in at 10-4. Just spend the money up to Harden, Embiid, Jokic. I think they're better plays. Even though this matchup is so juicy with Sacramento, it's juicy, but I don't think the prices are worth it with these guys.
Large field tournaments, I'm okay with it as well. Stevie?
I'm passing. I mean, yeah, large field tournaments, you could hope for like a Jason Tatum 50 actual point night, but I think overall this game just stinks. And, we have so many games that are within 3 or 4 points. Claxton's playing, by the way, it just came out.
That hurts LMA, as far as I can tell. That hurts Sharp as well.
But guess what? That's going to help Harden. I can tell you that right now.
Yep. He likes doing some PNR with him.
Man,
I mean, just this game stinks. Sacramento, Boston, we move on. Like, this is a catch-up game.
Yeah, I was thinking, like, what if Fox is out, or what if the two bigs are out? But like, they do have other bodies. Like Davis is there lurking, and
then it blows out even faster. So then it doesn't matter even more.
All right, let's talk about San Antonio and Houston. This is a fun game for sure.
This is the best game on the slate.
234 is the total. San Antonio is a 5-point favorite here at Houston. DK didn't do a great job with some of the prices on San Antonio. Houston fully healthy. San Antonio fully healthy with the exception of KBD. Well, Stevie, I'll let you go. Sounds like you want to talk about this game.
This game's fantastic. It's going to be the fastest pace, most non-defensive game on the slate. It's going to be like watching the All-Star game without all the All-Stars. So, I mean, DeJounte Murray, we haven't projected for 22. I'll take the under. He always comes in lower owned. I love DeJounte. I like Christian Wood, Jakob Poeltl, Kevin Porter Jr., Derek White. This game is just one of those games that I think you could game stack this game and just watch your teams go to the right. And I think that's what we all want at the end of the day. So I love this game. I think Eric Gordon as a kind of a lower owned value play that nobody's thinking about. And I mean, this game just sets up so good.
Pulling up the ownership, DK specifically, the biggest number we're looking at is Poeltl at 23%, Murray at 21. And I agree. I think Murray, just too cheap there at 10K. Obviously, we live in the world with salary cap, and you're probably starting with, many people will be starting with guys like Harden, talking about Embiid as well. So there's only so many big spends you have. The big body, Keldon Johnson, seems a little too cheap there at 5K. I'm okay with him. It's kind of like a last man in. FanDuel specifically looking at 10.3K on Murray, so 28%. The runbacks, Porter, Wood, and Gordon, I wouldn't go beyond that. Those guys are all looking at the teens as far as ownership on FanDuel. And I think basically the same thing. Yeah, Wood and Gordon in the teens as well. Porter around 10-ish on DK. Well, do you agree? You think this is an appealing? This was the game stack you wanted to talk about, maybe? I think so.
No, it's not actually, but I like Minnesota, this one Portland. As well. Yeah, what's that now?
Minnesota, Portland.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. But San Antonio, Houston, man, it's, tasty, juicy. Look at the ownership. We're all interested, and this should be a big game. I said I didn't want to play 10K for Jason Tatum. I would absolutely play 10K for DeJounte Murray in this spot against Houston. Even with Derek White back, he's got tremendous upside in this spot in terms of assists, rebounds, points, blocks, steals, you name it. He could have an upside game in every category. Love this spot. Keldon Johnson's, coming in with a really nice projection today at 5K on DK. He's 20% projected for 20% on where, a lot of people are playing him. Jakob Poeltl is projected for 21%. I think, for me, the sneaky play is always Devin Vassell. Right? Are you going to catch him on the game when he gets 30? When he goes for 30 fantasy points off the bench? It's absolutely in the cards. We saw him go for 40 against OKC just a little over a week ago in 22 minutes, Dean. That's kind of the spot where you look at him in a game with Houston. Last time he shot 3 for 10 in this spot, put up 20 fantasy points. He hits 2 more shots. He's probably around 25. Devin Vassell is absolutely sneaky, not sneaky, but spare piece for tournaments for me to maybe get off some of the New Orleans chalk.
Yeah, pretty solid fantasy points per minute in the season. 0.9 for Devin Vassell. And like, yeah, the Houston matchup, it's the nut matchup. It's the fastest team to play against, and they're the worst team when it comes to the defensive efficiency. So obviously a super appealing matchup there for San Antonio. And the ownership reflects it to some degree. 119 team total. That's a big old number. 2 more games to go before we move on and talk about
real quick, Dean, before we move
go for it.
on. If you're on Prize Picks, go pound the over on the taco for your max $25 bet for DeJounte Murray. 33.5 for points, rebound, and assists. That's a tasty taco. You don't even need hot sauce to eat that one.
Oh, yeah. 86 the hot sauce for me. Hey, if you've not signed up for Prize Picks, use the promo code Grinders, GRINDERS. Get yourself your your deposit bonus there. Also, if you're a premium member here at RG, the extension, the RG extension for both Google Chrome or Firefox, whichever one you prefer, that's available as well. How that works is it just overlays like the actual point projection right next to what the actual number is. And you can sort of figure out, oh, this guy's got a 29.5 over. He's projected for 36 points. Maybe I'll bet the over because 36 is higher than 29.5. All right, 2 games left, an hour and a half after the San Antonio Houston game at 8. Well, no, 2 hours. Bad math by me, my UCF math. 2 hours later, it's kind of a doubleheader there. 2 games going down at 10 o'clock in the association. Minnesota and Portland, 232.5 is the total. Portland is a 3-point dog here. So yes, it is high and it is tight. Some expensive pieces here. And as far as Portland, they're getting a little bit healthier these days. Covington expected to play with his finger. Little should be fine with his knee. DSG should be available as well. Powell should also be available. Lillard, who knows when he's going to play? Probably not again this season. Minnesota is fully healthy with the exception of Pat Bev. He is dealing with an ankle. He is questionable. Got a nice price on DK, but we don't know if he's playing, and we don't know if there'll be a minutes issue. I'll throw it to you, Will. You sound like you're excited about this game.
Yeah, for sure. This is one of my favorites, kind of semi under the radar games. I think we do have a little projection on Pat Bev, but Anthony Edwards at 7,600 in this spot, projected at 5% ownership. I think he's a good mid-range play. The projection on him is 35, right? Right around 35 fantasy points. But we got to take this guy when he's got a chance for upside. This is a spot where I think he could go off for 45, 50, right? So I'm very interested. Karl Anthony Towns, I know he's facing Nurkic. I get it. But at 9,400, he can put up 60 as well. We've seen this guy go off for 25 points and a half. You know what I mean? So I think in certain spots like this, and I think that was the night he dropped 40 against Houston, put up 64 fantasy points. A guy that's going to be in the 40s most games. And tonight he gets a spot against Portland. Really like those pieces. And then, D'Angelo Russell, you might be thinking all these guys can't get there, but they're going to get there in different ways, right? Anthony Edwards is going to get there if he probably drops close to 30 real points. And D'Angelo Russell, he's going to get there if he's right around that 20-point range, but dials up the assists, right? So they're going to get there in multiple ways. I like those 3 pieces from Minnesota. Really tasty game with Portland. Sign me up here for tournaments.
Edwards on FanDuel specifically, 6.7K. It's a really appealing tag. We're looking, he's the highest projected guy there in this game. We're looking around 20% or so. I like McCollum. I think he's pretty interesting. The minutes are getting ramped up, and we know about McCollum without Lillard. So, we're looking at 36 minutes. I think there's a chance he plays like 37, 38, 39. It's certainly possible. We know how that usage gets when Lillard's off the court. So I think he's interesting on both DK and on FanDuel. We're looking at 16% ownership there for 7.5K. And Pat Bev is a good play in theory. And by the way, ideally, if I like McCollum, I want Pat Bev off the court. He's annoying. I don't want him anywhere near McCollum. But, it's not like I'm not going to not play him for that reason. Stevie, jump in your thoughts.
I mean, game stack wise, this game has a lot of appeal as a game stack because both centers are going to be low owned because Embiid and Jokic are going to, like if you're paying up for center, you're probably going to try to get to those 2 guys or you're going to try to save money. So that aspect of like game stacking this game is interesting. I mean, at these prices on DraftKings for Russell and Edwards, you're going to need like ceiling type games from them. CJ McCollum's in a great spot. Norman Powell is someone that is going to come in at really low ownership and like no one's going to kind of play in this like mid tier. So I like him. And then, I mean, we're kind of waiting on Pat Beverly news. If he plays, he's good value. But But yeah, I mean, this game's a really good game stack, probably top 3 game stack on the slate.
The tricky thing with Pat Bev is, again, this game is it's a 9-game slate, but 7 of the games are done at 8:00. So all you have is Minnesota, Portland, and Dallas and Golden State to work with. And if Pat Bev doesn't play, you could be in some kind of scramble mode. I'm trying to think, who could you replace
potentially play like Gary Payton, hoping that Klay Thompson doesn't play.
Oh, J.L. Noel makes the most sense, right? Same team. He would be the guy who would benefit to some degree. He's 4-1. So I think that's the one that makes sense. There you go. I think that's the play. All right. And by the way, you mentioned Cat there, Will. Like, nobody's going to play Cat tonight, because if you're spending on your center, you're spending up on either Embiid or Jokic. We're looking at Cat at less than 10%. We're looking at 7 right now, currently on DK. All right, let's go ahead and talk about the last game. And again, if you guys have any questions, do fire them off. The chat questions are being compiled. What up, YouTube? Hit that like button. Do subscribe. Do turn on those notifications. And yeah, there's no chat currently on YouTube, but you can chat with us in the Rotogrinders Discord. Doesn't cost you anything. It's a free channel, not a premium channel. Rotogrinders.com/Discord. And it's in the live stream chat channel right below Chiefs Prop Shop, Blender's Game Theory room as well. That one is premium. Blender's like not a man of the people. Chief is. Chief's room is for anybody. That's a quote you can take out of context if you want. Sure, why not? All right, last game. Dallas, Golden State, 210.5 is the total. Golden State is a 3.5-point favorite. And like, it feels like it should be more interesting than it actually is. You guys tell me otherwise. Golden State is going to be without Iguodala, Draymond Green, Klay Thompson's questionable. Cannot imagine they would push him in this game. Why would you? Dallas is fully healthy with the exception of Sterling Brown. You do have Luka, you do have Steph Curry, but man, I don't think I like this game. Like, whatever. Again, same rules apply. You can always play Steph in tournaments, and of course he can attend threes. If he does, I'm probably losing tonight. Will, do you like this game?
Man, it's not one of my favorites. I can tell you that. Should be a fairly good defensive matchup on both sides, mostly, and I think that's reflected in this 210 total, Dean. I mean, one of the lowest totals on the night. When you look around the association, not very many totals around that outside of Philly, New Orleans, and Detroit, Denver. And I think that's more so because we expect both of these teams to blow out the other. So it's kind of more of a lopsided low total, if that makes sense. And I think that does make sense to people. In the Dallas Golden State game, it's low and it's tight, or low for our generation of basketball. Yeah. And so I don't think I can play anyone. Porzingis has been out of his mind first half here recently, and he's 7,500. I think it's a fair price. But I think I'm gonna let this game sit on the shelf.
So it's two of the 4 best teams in the league when it comes to the defensive efficiency. And Dallas is the second slowest team in all of basketball, right? The only thing they're faster than is the Knicks. So yeah, like the pace and the good defense. I know Golden State's without Draymond, and that hits their defense to some degree, which is, thought process of this is not a great environment to compile fantasy points. As far as ownership, the biggest one we're seeing on FanDuel is Brunson, 12%, which I think is kind of high personally. The
Fox
biggest number.
Out.
Oh, I was hoping he would play. We got to work.
Who's out?
Fox on Sacramento.
And Metu and Fox are out for a second.
So where is Halliburton assists at 7.5, man? Oh God.
By the way, I'm not blaming you, Will, but like the conversation, I got derailed in that New Orleans conversation. I missed my spot for my Top Shot pack. I'm very angry. I'm fully tilting right now. The queue closed on me as I was buying it. I let it just sit there. I'm like, oh no, why did I have to argue about Guillermo Hernan Gomez? It's not his fault. It's not your fault. But yeah,
it's not.
Nobody cares about this. But just me tilting on there. Stevie, yeah. Well, Dallas Golden State. Let's clean this game up first, because the biggest number on DK we're seeing as far as ownership is Luka at 7%. And like, you can always play Luka, sure. And there's a chance Luka outscores Harden, and just like you can have the chalkiest lineup in the world and just play Luka instead of Harden, and there you go. Yeah, what are you doing as far as this game?
If Klay sits, I think you could potentially take a shot on like a Jordan Poole or Gary Payton. But overall, I mean, outside of just chasing like a ceiling game from Curry or Luka in a top heavy 150 entry max type tournament, I mean, this game kind of stinks. Like, it's going to be a good defensive game. It's going to be a slower pace game. So it's just not as juicy as some of these other 9 games that we have.
All right. Some questions we have compiled from the chat. I'll ask this one to you, Stevie. FanDuel high buy-in single entry. So a high buy-in single entry contest. Who is your favorite center? Single entry that the ownership tends to condense. Like, just people love the chalk in those single entry contests.
I mean, I really think you can get Jokic or Embiid on FanDuel and Harden and still play some really solid plays. So I think if you want to spend up, it's probably Jokic now that Barton's not going to play. You find the extra $600, but I think both of those guys are just absolute studs. Now, if you want to get super crazy, Christian Wood and Jakob Poeltl, both in that San Antonio-Houston game, are guys that I like as well.
All right. Will, question from the chat here. DK tournaments, Will, Na and Alvarado or both? Can you play them both? I think they're cheap enough where you can play both if you want to.
Yeah, I think you can pull that off.
This is for you specifically, Chief. Bang the Drummond is asking. Nice name. FanDuel tournament. Chief didn't like Tatum on DK. What about on FanDuel?
Hang on a second. Sorry. I've got to get back and make sure.
I'll give you a second. I'll ask Stevie a question.
Say 1, and there it is. 9,100. I can dig it.
Yeah,
I can.
Seems more appealing. Stevie, with Anthony Davis on a minutes limit, we don't know what the actual number is. Does that make LeBron more appealing as a run back with Harden? And I think the important thing to realize is whatever amount of minutes Davis plays, be it 20, 25, 30, it's all more than he's like played in the last month. So like any run Davis has is hurting LeBron. That's an interesting way of. I think they got it flipped. You understand what I'm asking, right?
I think realistically, with Davis playing, he's probably going to play 20 to 25 minutes, and I would say at least 16 to 20 of those minutes are going to be with LeBron on the floor, and that hurts his usage enough not to play LeBron here, because there's just so many other studs on the slate that you can play that have just as much ceiling and just as much floor as LeBron.
Also, I think LeBron is hurt. He's not going to play the 5 as much. Like Davis is going to start the 5. We've seen LeBron thriving at the 5. I don't know how much 5 he's going to play. I don't know if they kick like Howard out of the rotation. Like if that's just going to be like he's going to get booted and LeBron's going to play some backup 5, or they've seen the Stanley Johnson played some 5 as well too in the backup association. Like DeAndre Jordan, forget it. Like that's not happening. All right, more questions from the chat. With no Will Barton, is Monty Morris a good pivot from the chalkier value? I think we just updated our projections, so we have Morris playing 31 minutes now, projected for around 25, 26 points, 4.7K, which seems okay.
Yeah. I don't think he's better value than Nah, right? But the ownership is being reflected in that. Monty Morris is a guy that can go out there and put up 30. Like it's possible against Detroit. I don't think he's better than the New Orleans guys, though.
No, yeah, but I mean the ownership's going to reflect it, obviously.
Yeah, correct.
Let's see, Stevie. DK, is it worth doing Joker and Harden, and then Siakam? I guess that's Pascal Siakam. Plenty of value with the Pels. Like I think that's probably what. I mean, I think that's what our optimals are spitting out. Like literally that. I'm not certain. I'll run it again in a second. But do you think there's enough value to pull it off? Basically, 2.5, 3 studs. Basically, is the question.
I mean, I think everyone's going to go stars and scrubs. So are you going to do what everyone else is doing, or are you going to do something different?
Dean, let me put this out there too for everybody's playing Prize Pick, squeeze it in last minute. Aaron Gordon, as much as I hate Aaron Gordon, we've been making money on the first half prop for Aaron Gordon at 13.5 fantasy points. It's been amazing. Amazing. Tonight he gets Detroit, no Will Barton. They haven't adjusted it. I'm hammering the over on 13.5 fantasy points.
I'm taking a look at some of the optimals. I just kind of fired up on DK, and 4 Pelicans. Well, actually, no. We're not getting. Well, 4 Harden and 4 Pelicans is basically that is the start of it. And Terrence Mann has landed in some as well, which is kind of worth noting. With the absence of Morris, 4.1K on DK, we're projecting around 25 fantasy points. So, as a last man in, I'm okay with Terrence Mann as well to kind of make stuff work. We got to step aside and get out of here and make way for crunch time. If you guys are premium members, check it out on rotogrinders.com and take you all the way up to lock. Whatever questions we did not answer, they will answer for you all. And of course, news is going to break and they will adjust to that on the fly. That was Will. Check him out in the prop shop in the Discord channel. That is free. It doesn't cost y'all anything. Always hang out with us in the live stream chat channel. We're doing the shows. We appreciate y'all hanging out with us. And anybody who's hanging out with us on YouTube as well. Do hit that like button. Do subscribe. Do turn on those notifications before you step aside and get out of here. That was Will. That was Stevie. That was basketball. Thanks to producer Steve. Thanks to Devin lurking. I was Dean. We're out of here. Holler.